Hi, Lakeville, LakeCAM viewers. This is Bob Marshall from LakeCAM with our latest edition of Lakeville Voices. And today we have with us Dr. Barbara Starkie, our new Apponequet High School principal. And before we begin, actually, in the interest of full disclosure, I need to say that you should know that I've spent 36 years as a teacher in this system, and we'll go from there. All right, well, welcome back, Dr. Starkie. Nice
Thank
to
you.
have you back.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you to the folks at LakeCAM for coming in today to reintroduce me to the community.
Exactly. We want to give you an opportunity to do that because some of the folks in town may not know you from before. You have been away for a little while, and they may have forgotten, and actually I have forgotten some of your history. Would you reintroduce yourself to us, tell us a little bit about your history? How did you first get here? What positions did you hold here then? Where have you been since? How'd you get back? Who are you, Barbara Starkie?
Okay, well that's an easy question for me. So I started working here at Apponequet Regional High School back in 1993 as an English language arts teacher. At the time there were 200 applicants for an ELA position, and a gentleman who has since passed, Lloyd Dudley, picked my name out of the pile because I had simply checked off that I would be interested in picking up the drama productions here at the school.
Aha.
And that was my gateway in. So then I spent the next 17 years teaching here in the ELA department, and in that time was the proud producer of many musicals and plays here in the building. I was also a field hockey coach, senior class advisor, and ELA department chairperson. Also happy to say that in that time I was heavily involved in 2 NEASC evaluations of the school, and really enjoyed all my time here in working with the people of Freetown and Lakeville and all their fine children. And then 3 years ago, the opportunity presented itself for me to become an assistant principal at the Robert G. O'Donnell Middle School in Stoughton. So I took advantage of that opportunity and spent the last 3 years working there as an assistant principal. It's a wonderful place to be. I had a lot of support from the people in the Stoughton community, and some opportunities there for advancement as well. However, back in February, when I noticed the posting for a principal at Apponequet Regional High School, I could do nothing else but apply for the job.
So in other words, Thomas Wolfe was wrong. You can come home again.
You can come home again.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, as I say, welcome back. We're very happy to have you.
Thank you.
Question, why did you choose education in the first place? It's not as though it's the easiest profession on the planet, although some may think so. Has it been all that you thought it would be?
I think it chose me,
Ah,
to be honest. I was originally an accounting major in college, which is a far cry from being an ELA teacher. And I was halfway through my accounting program at Salve Regina University, and I just really decided I didn't want to crunch numbers. And I took a philosophy of education course, largely due to the fact that my mother had always been a teacher.
I see.
And what I enjoyed so much about teaching, I got from my mother. And once I decided I couldn't be an accounting major and I took that class, all the planets lined up, and that led me to education. But the part I really appreciated from my mom was her heavy involvement in Wareham High School, where she spent her career as an educator. And I always enjoyed her tie to the building. And I remember as a child going to the basketball games with her, being an active participant in the school. I practically thought I went to Wareham schools. So I just really appreciated her connection, and that is ultimately what drew me into education, to want to have that kind of connection with the building and the life of a school.
Very good. Well, it's an interesting segue into the next part of the question. You mentioned that you took a philosophy of education course. And I remember being asked this question many moons ago in my interview for my position here, and I'm not sure it was a fair question, but I'll ask it anyway. How would you define your philosophy of education? Is it possible to wrap that up and give us a succinct answer?
Yeah, I mean, you've set that up so nicely, because people
it's
write
tough.
pages and pages and pages about
Books.
educational philosophy and books and spend their lives studying it. And I really think it just comes down to all people can learn. They don't always learn on the same schedule or at the same pace or in the same way, but all people can learn and want to learn. And that's really what I think my philosophy is. And as a building principal, I believe my job will be to focus very, very strongly on learning and ensuring that all students are able to learn. It's just finding the right pace and the right manner.
Very good. All right. Being Apponequet's principal, as I'm sure you know, is a tough job, and the district has had a lot of administrative upheaval recently. What is there about you that makes you the right person for the job?
I think my connection to the community and my longevity here and the respect I garnered throughout my tenure at Apponequet, I think that makes me the right person for this time. In the midst of so much change, I think the stability of the known person who also has the qualifications to fill the position and the strong desire to do so is what makes me the right person.
Very good. I noticed in some of the recent emails that you and I exchanged that at the closing you have the quote, achievement, rigor, honor, success for all students. Why?
Well, that's become the new mission statement of Apponequet Regional High School. We had a lengthy mission statement that I really believe encompassed what Apponequet was all about. And then after the NEASC evaluation, from what I understand, the recommendation was to abbreviate the statement. And 2 principals ago, the statement was abbreviated to that smaller, more encompassing phrase.
Right.
So I've adopted that. As the new building principal, I need to, and I think it really sums up what ARHS is all about anyway.
Oh, and you know what? I didn't even notice. ARHS, Achievement, Rigor, Honor, Success. Very clever. Okay.
I wish I could take credit for it, but I can't.
Last year, Apponequet's interim principal, Mr. Patota, participated in a student film, which I just found out about, called The Brunch Club. You'll find it on YouTube, I believe, along the lines of our takeoff on The Breakfast Club. And it was marginally critical of schools in general, Apponequet and him. Could you ever see yourself participating in such a film?
I'm not familiar with that particular piece. I do know it's out there, and I haven't had a chance to watch it, so I couldn't speak about that selection specifically.
Right.
I do know that satire is a very important piece of learning. I think students need to understand how to interpret it, and in order to understand how to interpret it, sometimes you have to engage in it. And I don't think it's unreasonable to sometimes mock a situation. You have to, you have to be able to laugh about some things, because life is full of many challenges and things that sometimes you don't understand. So along the lines of Jonathan Swift and other authors that have done a great job, done a great job with satire, I think sometimes it's appropriate.
Okay, great. Okay, with so many new administrators and faces in the district for this coming year, what problems and opportunities does this create for the school system in general and Apponequet in particular?
Lots of new people, as you said, it can be a positive or it can present lots of challenges. I think one of the positives would be the fresh voices and the fresh ideas that people bring from wherever they're hailing from. So I know that I can bring some of the things that I've learned at Stoughton to our community. So using myself as an example, I think bringing in fresh ideas is always a good thing. Then the challenge of that is taking everybody's fresh ideas and making sure that you're not changing everything all at once, just because everybody has different perspectives and new ideas. So it's kind of maintaining the things that are working well and not changing them just because you have new voices involved. And then identifying the areas that need to be altered and using those fresh perspectives.
May I say, as a former teacher, that is music to my ears. Keeping what works and using...
And addressing what doesn't.
What doesn't, exactly. What can you tell us about how the new search is coming for the new assistant principal that needed to be replaced and other needed staff, and what procedures might you have used?
Okay, so in terms of the assistant principal position, Beth Sylvia, who was functioning as the assistant principal here at the high school, accepted a position at Foxborough, and she's now an assistant principal there, and we wish her the best. We wish her much luck in her new position. And then we have replaced her with a gentleman named Ben Janowitz, who was formerly the assistant principal at Pembroke High School. So we did an extensive search. We had over 100 applicants online. We set up a committee, including students and parents, and held a series of interviews, and Ben was by far our first choice. Very happy to have him on board.
Very good.
So feel free to drop by and say hello to him.
Will do, yeah.
And then in terms of other teaching staff, I think it's important for the community to know that we have filled 15 positions here at the high school. So we're looking at 1/4 of the building, if not a little bit higher. Forgive me, I'm not a math major. But 1/4 of the building, new staff members. And that's a result of several different things. We did have some teachers who retired, and we had some teachers who accepted positions elsewhere while they were awaiting news about the override. So it caused some of our newer teachers to head off somewhere else. So I have personally spent a tremendous amount of time hiring new staff. And
Right.
we've added some procedures to our staff hiring that I think are helping us to find the best and brightest for our students. One of which is having candidates come in and execute model lessons. And we did quite a bit of that this summer.
Very good.
So they were executing model lessons as candidates to students from National Honor Society, DECA, and Student Council who were willing to come in over the summer and be our student audience. And I want to thank those students very publicly for giving up their time and helping us pick the best and the brightest.
I must applaud that. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, it's taking quite a bit of time. But
I'll bet.
I think it's going to get the type of staff we need here for our students.
Terrific. To get the chance to see them in action, which is something previously you just never had the chance to do. Very good.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
You taught here during a time when Apponequet's reputation in the area was, in my opinion, second to none. Fairly or unfairly, I think it's fair to say that that reputation has taken some hits during recent years. And what plans do you have to move us in the right direction?
I think schools in general have taken hits, particularly since we're in such a tenuous economic situation. You tend to look at, the reason for that, and much of the burden falls on public education. So I think the hits that Apponequet has taken are probably not just unique to this school system, but in general, I think showcasing the good work that our students do and really promoting the wonderful things that happen here at Apponequet Regional High School will help us to, better project ourselves into the community, and also inviting the community, like yourself, or accepting invitations from the community to come in and showcase the fine things that happen here, whether they're in the classroom, on the stage, on the athletic field, teacher accomplishments as well. I think that will help us in the community.
I agree with you 100%. And as far as showcasing students, as you and I have already discussed, LakeCAM would like to be a partner with you to help showcase the kids, the teachers, and the fine work that goes on here.
Great.
And the public may not know, but we've donated, LakeCAM has donated, on permanent loan, I should say, to the high school, to the middle school, and to Old Colony, camera equipment where the kids and the teachers can use it to cover. They may be classroom events, they may be sporting events, all sorts of things. So Dr. Starkie and I have already had that discussion, and she's agreed to try to push and let the kids know that this type of thing is available, which, by the way, we pay, kids, we pay for you to come and shoot a basketball game or a football game or whatever it may happen to be. So just keep that in mind. And Dr. Starkie and I have already had that conversation. So very good. Showcasing what's the good work that's going on, I think that's a great idea. I've heard, actually, from you that you had some entry meetings with the Apponequet staff in June. Can you tell us what you learned?
I did. I met with staff, students, and parents. To be truthful, I spent the bulk of my time with the staff. I was trying to catch them before summer break. And I learned that this staff is more unified than they realize, and that the teachers in this building are really, really looking for the same thing: quality, equitable education for their students in a safe, respectful learning environment. And I think there have been there's a tendency at the high school of people to be very departmentalized, and I think over the past few years that has become a little bit more apparent. Part of that is due to, state mandates and testing and people becoming very focused on narrow areas. So I think capitalizing on the fact that everybody wants the same thing and maybe diminishing some of those walls and pointing that out to people and unifying our staff a little bit more is a need that arose from my conversations with people.
Very good. I would say that's spot on from what I'm seeing. How can you and the staff make positive moves toward reaching Apponequet's mission statement and the recommendations, all of the recommendations of the NEAS&C? report?
I think one really meaningful thing that came out of that last NEASC visit was the need for common planning time. And I think that's been addressed at the high school schedule in terms of putting people together on Wednesday mornings for collaboration. And I look to using that time as a way to address the NEASC needs. Some of the things that, like diminishing those walls and getting people to collaborate together and understanding how all students learn at different paces and levels, as I said earlier in the interview. Just giving people the time to collaborate and identify at-risk students and find ways to really address their needs by working collaboratively. I think that chunk of time each week can be used very, very wisely and can help us address some of the identified needs that came from that NEASC report.
Very good. Thank you. How can parents help their children learn better in school and make the best of their time at Apponequet? That's a loaded question.
That is a loaded question. Well, I mean, I know that secondary level parents face a really interesting task. You're trying to support your students in the most meaningful way without hovering or being overbearing, and you're dealing with students who are also young adults and they don't want to be hovered over, but as soon as they need your support, they're sure to let you know. So I'm very understanding of the plight of secondary level parents. As a matter of fact, my doctoral studies were in use of the parent portal and communicating data to parents. And in preparation for writing that paper, I did quite a bit of research about that struggle when you're a secondary parent. Right. So my advice to parents would be to continue to walk that line and to keep communication open first and foremost with your students, and assuring your students that you're there for them in meaningful ways and that you are open to their communication. And then second to that, reaching out to the school or accepting school invitations to come in and be a part of our community here, whether that be checking the parent portal for progress reports and report cards when those are posted, or making yourself available when teachers are reaching out to you to talk about students.
Very good. How can you and the staff, and you've sort of answered this to some degree, how can you and the staff make positive moves towards reaching Apponequet's mission statement and the recommendations of any agency? Do you feel you've already answered that?
Yeah, I feel like I've addressed that. I think collaboration is the first step towards addressing any of those needs.
Okay. Yeah. Having been a member of this, well, actually, I was a member of Apponequet's faculty way back when, or having been a member of this faculty, how would you respond to those who might be concerned that you'd be overly sympathetic to teacher needs?
Yeah, I can see how people would think that. As a matter of fact, when I went through my rounds of interviews for the position, that came up several times. And the best answer I can give is to watch me in practice. Because I think there's a difference between being understanding and being sympathetic. So I can understand what happens as a classroom educator, and that leads me, I think, to be very realistic about those expectations. Sympathy is a whole other category in my mind. I know what it's like to be a classroom teacher, but I also know how much time classroom teachers have to get a boatload of things done, for lack of a better way to say that. But I also understand the importance of prioritizing and the importance of addressing what really affects learning. And I think that's going to make me a very credible leader for teachers in the building, but it also doesn't make me shy away from speaking to people when they need to be spoken to. And I don't know a better way of saying that, but everybody in their profession, myself included, isn't going to do everything perfectly all the time. And the collaborative nature that comes with a job like this, where you're dealing with the human subject all the time, has to be paramount. So if you're not someone who can speak to folks about remedying practice or about addressing issues, then you probably shouldn't be in education anyway.
Very good. I would certainly agree with that. There's been a lot of conflict in the media in recent years regarding the need to focus more on student needs versus teacher needs, and this kind of segues to what you were just talking about. In your opinion, can we have successful schools without teachers' needs being addressed?
I think the needs of the students are important. Teachers support students, but you do need to address teacher needs. Teachers are employees, but need to be empowered to do their jobs. And then once they're empowered to do their jobs, that's when the learning really happens. And empowering folks to do their jobs comes in lots of different ways. Sometimes it's just a comment in the hallway that says, I walked by and I really enjoyed that lesson. Or a parent contacted me and said, this is really going well in your classroom. So empowering folks, I think, is the way to look at it, rather than, I kind of forgot the phrase that you used.
So did I.
Yeah, so I think that's really what it's all about, empowering folks to do their jobs in a meaningful way.
Okay, just as we, as teachers, look to empower the kids.
Students to learn.
Exactly.
I think if we take the focus from the word teaching and shift the focus to the word learning, that right there sets a different type of tone in a building, and I wish I could take credit for that, shifting from teaching to learning. I can't. I feel like it's Richard Dufour, but I can't give proper credit, but I can say it's not mine. But I like that notion, focusing on the learning.
Very good. What can you tell us about the status of the installation of the new technology update made possible by last year's debt exclusion vote, and how will this new technology make Apponequet a better school?
Okay, I can't speak eloquently about it because, to be truthful, in the midst of hiring all the staff, I've not had a tremendous amount of time to focus on what's happened in terms of technology. But I do know the whole building has gone wireless, and I think that was a significant product of the monies earmarked for technology.
Right.
And I think putting wireless capability in all the buildings, and this one in particular, is a move in a really powerful direction. And I know, well, one of the visions I would have would be to move to a one-to-one device atmosphere, and whether that is funded by the district, partially funded by parents on their own, whether students are bringing their own device, all those are issues that would have to be hammered out in the future. But the reality is we've become a technological society, as we all know.
Like it or not.
And like it or not, and we are remiss if we don't prepare our students appropriately to function in that society. Many of the students are way ahead of myself specifically in terms of their understanding of use of technology and the power that that has.
Right.
But appropriate use of technology is a whole other category.
There you go.
And I think that becomes the function of the school system. So giving the building wireless capability has really broadened our opportunity here to address technological needs with students. I mean, we won't be bound to a 25-student computer lab anytime you'd like to do research. You have the capability.
You can do it right in your own classroom.
Of anywhere in the building. And I think that opens the door. It's just now getting the devices to match.
Right,
and
it should be mentioned to the viewers if they aren't aware of it. I recall that that debt exclusion vote did not include as part of the piece the purchase of new equipment. It was for the infrastructure and the Wi-Fi and so forth. So that still has to be addressed. The thought occurs to me as you were just answering there, I wonder, I would imagine some of your professional development early on would have to go in the direction of helping the teachers to learn what the system will facilitate.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm not clear on what the plan is for teacher preparedness or readiness, but you would absolutely have to help the teachers and empower them before
I'm just thinking from my own point of view, right.
Yeah.
Okay, good. What curriculum, instructional, and/or scheduling challenges do you see ahead for Apponequet, and how will you look to resolve them?
Right now, we're working with a schedule that was voted on at the end of the year last year. It's a 6-period schedule with a rotation. And that presents a little bit of a challenge here. When you have a rotating schedule, it's very good for learning in the sense that students are exposed to topics at different times of the day, because especially as youngsters, your body clock and your schedule is much different than an adult.
Right.
So you might be a much better math student in the morning than you are in the afternoon, so it gives you the chance to rotate through the schedule. The glitch with a rotation is that it locks your building into that, and it doesn't allow for, say, community service projects or service learning projects that would need to happen at specific times. So if the schedule didn't rotate, you might be able to release some students to do some other types of non-traditional learning.
Right.
So that's one thing that we'd have to look to in the future to try to address here, because I do think service learning, community service project, work release programs really cater to a certain group of students that we might not be addressing right now, and that's one way to address that. So the rotation in the schedule, and then offering a 6-period day at times can be very limiting with elective options.
Right.
So I would be looking to work with the staff to maybe move toward a different structure in the schedule to free up elective options for students.
I remember a couple of years ago when that switch from 7 to 6 was made, there was a furor within the community, my word, about the limiting nature of elective options.
And I know part of the reason that happened was budgetary constraint.
Oh, of course.
And having only been here for 6 or 7 weeks, you know, it's great for me to want all of those things, but I need to dwell in the reality of budget constraints. But looking at the broader picture and what students really need should be the focus. And then finding the money becomes the challenge.
Indeed, challenge. In her interview with LakeCAM a few weeks ago, Dr. Nash discussed some new plans for restructuring some of the teacher, paraprofessional, and administrative positions in the district. Can you tell us what some of that restructuring would be and how it would make Apponequet a better school?
One of the focuses of the restructure was to try to identify some folks to help with the new supervision evaluation process. The new supervision evaluation process for teachers is incredibly cumbersome. Having been in education for 22 years, I can probably tell you, short of the up-and-coming PARCC exam, it's probably one of the most cumbersome things to happen to public education. The end result, hopefully, would be improvements in student learning and scores and better classroom environments and stronger homeschool communication. But with that comes a tremendous amount of work on administrators who are certified to supervise and evaluate. So adding some staff who could help with that and really work with teachers at the ground level on instruction and learning is part of that plan. So I know that some funds were earmarked and approved by the school committee to help find some folks to do that, and I know we're in the process of interviewing people for those positions right now.
Okay, are those going to be just central office folks, or is that are they going to be in the individual schools as well?
They would be shared across buildings.
Okay.
So I know.
So more a central office person among disciplines?
Yeah, I don't know if you'd exactly call them central office. I really think they're shared building administrative folk. So more like a 6 through 12 identified person to help oversee humanities teachers. So that's more the direction it would be. Really less central office, administrative, but much more teacher-student involved.
So they'll be out into the schools, into the classrooms.
Stationed in the schools and in the classrooms working with teachers. And not stationed.
I guess that's what I was trying to get at. Where would they be stationed and active and so forth?
In my mind, it would make a whole lot of sense to put one in the middle school building and one in the high school building, yet they will both articulate across for their areas, whether it be humanities or STEM.
Very good. Yeah. Okay. Back when I guess it was last year, I interviewed Dr. Heisinger about Apponequet faculty's TEL survey. This is a state survey that the faculty did. It's done all across the state. Given Apponequet faculty's evaluation of 2012 and the clear concerns they expressed in it regarding curriculum, morale, and discipline, what will you do to help resolve those concerns?
Step one is to become more familiar with the report. So, you know, in the interest of full disclosure, I've not had the opportunity to read the full report, but I do know my own entry meetings that I held with the staff were pretty indicative of some of the staff concerns around some of those same areas. So again, to address the curriculum, I think using the common planning time that's been designated in a really meaningful way will help people to continue some of the fine work that's been developed in terms of curriculum. Disciplinary issues, I think calibrating the 2 assistant principals along with myself to work on the same page, or, you know, lack of another way to say that, would be very helpful. And I'm really looking toward next week as an opportunity for me to work with my 2 assistant principals, since they will now be both fully on board and here with me to collaborate so that we're all on the same page in terms of discipline. I also think communicating the rules and expectations very clearly to students and families and upholding those rules will help in terms of discipline. And then once you've got those things in line, morale kind of comes along.
So communication and consistency.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty simple, doesn't it?
And I have to add a third C, community. You need a community.
And that's a nice segue into the next. What in terms of improvement, what would you want our staff to do? What would you want our community leaders to do? What would you want our students to do in order to work together and improve things?
Mm-hmm. Being realistic and supporting our students in their learning. Because really, it can be very easy with all of the things going on in high school students' lives to forget that the focus needs to be on academics and what's happening in the classroom, and that everybody should be working with that as a central focus. So whether it is on the stage, the athletic field, it still has to be about learning. Every learning experience isn't pleasant, but every learning experience should result in some form of growth. And if everybody can keep that as a focus, whether you're a student, a parent, a teacher, a community member, a principal, I think we'll be moving in a good direction.
It works for me. It seems that budgets are shrinking annually. Well, it doesn't seem that they are.
They are.
What can you and all of us do to help us get the most for our educational dollar?
Really concentrating on the way the schedule is laid out, the way staff is being utilized in the building, holding students accountable for making the most of their time when they are here, and having parents support us in that effort as well. Those are some small ways you can address budgetary concerns. I mean, from what I am seeing as I've returned, there's not a lot of money to be spent, and we need to make sure that what we're spending is being appropriately used. And I think that would be one of my priorities, sitting behind my desk in my office looking over where we're lying our resources. So that would be step one.
Very good. You've answered this to some degree. One of the things any principal needs to do is create strong relationships within the community. Do you have any specific plans on how to do that?
Well, this is one huge plan. You know, sitting here with you and having the opportunity to
Sure.
speak to the community is just one way to reach out. I think also having students in the community is very important. I mentioned before the need for community service and service learning projects where our students are benefiting from the fine folks who we have in our community, business members or volunteers, working with the school library, working within the school system itself, setting up some peer tutoring programs, and getting our kids to understand what it's like to be a citizen and a valuable member of a community.
Very good. If there was only one message you'd want to get out to parents, students, and the community, what would that be?
Please support our students in their learning efforts, and thank you so much for bringing me back to Freetown Lakeville. I look forward to working with everybody in the community. Support our students.
Very good. What would you want the returning students to know about what to expect at Apponequet this year?
They should expect the same, but change. So you're coming back to Apponequet Regional High School. We are still the Lakers, the mighty, mighty Lakers, but we've had to make some changes in our schedule and some changes in the way we're going to be conducting ourselves here in the building so that we can shine in the community as we should. So I'm looking forward to the last week in August when I have the freshmen or new students to the building coming back in the evening. I believe it's Wednesday, August 28th, to become oriented to Apponequet itself. And then I'm looking forward to the next evening when I have just the senior class coming back together, an opportunity that we're calling Laker Night, just for the seniors to come back and understand that they're coming back to their home, back to their school, their home base, but that in that home base there have been some changes that they need to be aware of and understand how they're going to be supported in a new, yet the same way.
Right. Very good. Well, Dr. Starkie, I'd like to thank you for joining us here at LakeCAM and giving the viewers an opportunity to meet you once again, and we look forward to a wonderful year working together.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming in.